Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as we are about to commence the AFC Member Associations and Regional Associations Presidents and General Secretaries Conference 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly remind you to switch off or set your mobile phones to silent mode while inside the conference hall. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand to request a microphone, and we will be pleased to pass the floor to you. Simultaneous interpretation is available in Arabic and English. Please use the headsets provided at your seat. Thank you for your kind attention and cooperation.
A very good morning and welcome back, distinguished guests, presidents, general secretaries, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're feeling refreshed for the final day of the AFC Member Associations and Regional Associations Presidents and General Secretaries Conference 2025. Over the past 2 days, we've explored the many dimensions of football, from technical foundations that shape the game on the pitch to sustainability and governance that shape Asian football. Today, we shift our focus to another vital side of the game, football as a business. So without further ado, let's kick off today's presentation with our first session. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Heather Garriock, Interim CEO and General Secretary, Football Australia. Welcome, Heather. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It gives me great pleasure and gratitude to be here today. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Datuk Seri, Vahid, my president, Anta Isaac, presidents, distinguished guests, and general secretaries. I'm very grateful to be standing here today. It's the first time I've attended an AFC conference, and wow, I'm impressed. It started 5 days ago at the AFC Dream Asia conference, and I was just inspired greatly. Today I wanted to transfer my knowledge and talk about me as a footballer and how it transfers to business. So therefore, a bit of a play on words, the set plays of football as a business. I played for Australia 130 times. I represented Australia at 3 World Cups and 2 Olympic Games. Fortunate enough to win the only silverware the Matildas have won to date in 2010 at the Asian Cup, one of the greatest moments of my life. Before I go into anything, as a player, I wanted to describe my character. I wasn't the best player. I wasn't naturally talented. I was the hardest working player. I had 3 things that my father taught me as a youngster: discipline, dedication, and determination. And to this day, and standing here, is the reason why I am, is because of these 3 things. What is a set play? Usually, I'd ask the footballers in the room. I just walked past Andy, and he said, I can't wait to hear about the set plays. Well, set plays are a little bit different, okay? We think about set plays as static balls offensively and defensively as set plays. However, I want you to think differently. In a game of football, there are set plays every single moment, whether there's a pattern play in the front third, whether there's playing out of the back, whether it's playing in between and dropping a striker to receive the ball with a third man runner. There's different set plays. But the thing that requires a quality set play is about the structure. It's about the process. It's about being consistent. And the one thing that I've had to teach myself, and I'm still not mastering it, it's to be patient. When you fail and you try a set play, you get back up and you try it again and again and again and again. It's not easy. There's obstacles in life, there's obstacles in business, there's obstacles throughout my career, and no doubt in all the MAs, because there's plenty of MAs that no doubt are struggling to try and think differently. There's going to be obstacles. It's about sticking to the course, having a structure, having a process, being consistent, and being patient. I see such an amazing opportunity for Asian football. We've seen the growth. 1.8 billion football fans across Asia. Incredible. 280 million participants registered, playing regularly. Datuk Seri spoke about solidarity in Asian football. envisage working together. Can you imagine the developed nations, including Australia, and one thing we're working on? How can we help? What is it that we need to do to be able to bring the underdeveloped nations to a level that it should be? It's not about money, even though we sit there and think about money and we talk about the grants and we talk about the funding. Of course it's important. It's vitally important. But there's more than that. And as a smaller MA and as an underdeveloped MA, you would know it is more than money. It's about thinking laterally, being creative, and asking the nations that are developed how you can help. 4 set plays I'm going to speak to you about. And these 4 set plays, the reason why I'm speaking about the 4 set plays is because they're low-hanging fruit for MAs. Data. Data is absolute king. We talk about the trends. We talk about making decisions. Being the General Secretary of Football Australia, the first thing I brought in was about utilising data, making evidence and data decisions, collaborating with our leagues, utilising the data with our national teams. I wanted to provide an example. The example's this. In 2020, Football Australia were failing in the youth side of things. We didn't understand why we couldn't get to that next level. So we decided to embark on a performance gap report. Within that performance gap report, it showed not enough playing minutes. I'm sure that's the case all around Asia with different other nations. But what we did, we utilised the data to inform our decision making. We changed our regulations. And the boys that just won the Asian Cup 5 years ago have benefited from that data because we increased games. We went from 20 games to 30 games. Our A-League players, we had to have a certain amount of underage A-League players to be able to play in our top competition. That wasn't by chance, it was on purpose, it was part of the structure, it was part of the process. Less than 40% of AFC MAs have a united database. What is a database? It's a centralised registration system where you know that you can go to any one time within your business to be able to say, I would like to market about the development of grassroots. I would like to market about a game coming up. If you have that centralised system, it's incredibly important to be able to utilise that. So federations are utilising CRM systems and achieving up to 50% higher sponsorship retention. Absolutely. So that's the first one. Second one, and obviously the one that I'm super, super passionate about, women's football, but I love all football. But this is one of the fastest growing opportunities within your MA, and it's been spoken about the last couple of days. Unbelievable. Obviously, the participation has grown 64% since 2017. Why? Because there's investment from AFC, there's investment from FIFA. In terms of the Asian Cup, over 150 million people watched the Asia Cup. Anyone that watched the Women's World Cup in 2023, it was the highest rated program of any program on Channel 7 to date. To break those records are incredible. Sponsors see women's football as a different opportunity. Why is it a different opportunity? Because it isn't developed yet. It's an opportunity for us to look at, to say, how can we utilise women's football and be able to grow it? I think the best example, and the real example, is the Matildas. 20 years ago, the biggest crowd that we had was 10,000 people at the Sydney Football Stadium. Today, we're packing out stadiums. The women's team are on par with the men's team. In 2019, we set a strategy. How can we grow women's football to a point that it is equitable? And we've got there, but it still isn't enough. I wanted to bring up something that is low-hanging fruit, and I talk about low-hanging fruit and a set play that's a possibility for everybody to action when they walk out the door today. And that's a diversity check. We spoke about women's football costing money. We spoke about all programs costing money. But in turn, mums make the decisions. So at the end of the day, when you look at the decision makers and you ultimately look at the transaction of how much on your balance sheet women's football brings in and out, it's not true, because there's other factors that play into it. So again, when we talk about women's football and the diversity check on and off the field, when we decided as a federation 7 or 8 years ago that we wanted to invest in the Matildas, it wasn't just money. It was about the communications, external communications. And this is the low-hanging fruit that I wanted to speak about. Look around the room. We look at the diversity. Look on your social media. Are you posting pictures of all men? Are you posting pictures of all women? Because I can tell you, today's presentation, I've only put women in it, which again is not good enough. One of the key things I did at my last role as a CEO, it was a very male-dominated industry. It was Taekwondo. When I walked in the door, there was no women. What I decided to do was do a small thing. We had no money, it was a small budget, similar to our small MAs here. I decided from an external point of view and a communication point of view, social media, pictures, I had control over, ultimate control over. So whether we took a picture or whether we took a video, there was always equity there. There was always diversity there. So have a look. Check your shoulder like you do on a football pitch. Have a look around and see, is that something I'm doing as an MA? And if it is, fabulous. And if it's not, then see if you can do that. That's a small action. I did want to speak about a story when it comes to women's football, because the man himself has just walked in, and that's Yasser, and how deeply passionate I am about Saudi football. And the reason why is because from a perception point of view, external perception point of view, about women's football is not correct ultimately across the globe. And I wanted to say, there was a moment a couple of years ago I come to Saudi and I was surprised, really surprised. But I'm happy I've been here 4 or 5 times since. Because I was at a coaching clinic. I love grassroots, I love kids, I love the smiles on their faces. And at the coaching clinic, I stood next to Lemia, who's leading the way in women's football here in Saudi, and also was with Yasser. And there was a little girl that came up to Yasser and said something in Arabic, and I turned around to the person I was standing next to, which was Lemia, said, "What did she say?" Because she was emotional. It was, you could see it was deep to her heart. And she said, "President Yasser, thank you so much for allowing women and girls to play football." Can you imagine? Only 5 or 6 years ago, women and girls couldn't play football here. Thank you for contributing to women's football generally. Third thing, we talk about grassroots. And again, I can talk about grassroots back at home, which is a really key thing. But utilising grassroots, 70% of AFCs believe that identifying grassroots as a development priority. Of course it is. That is the foundation. We heard the glitz and glamour of national teams. Everybody asks questions. How do we qualify for a national team? This is how. This is how we qualify for a national team. If you nurture the seeds within the ground, which are your grassroots, you create depth, you implement school programs, then you will see the depth and the growth and the foundation. Football in Australia is the highest participated sport. 1.9 million participants. Do we convert them to national team players? No. Because we can't get it right in terms of connecting grassroots to national teams. Is it possible for you to walk away? It doesn't cost much. To look at the school side of things. Can we implement one program one social responsibility program, one school program. Can I tell you, here in Saudi, within the last 2 years, women and girls in schools has grown by 70%. 70%. Incredible. That's not by chance, it's not by luck. We got qualified for the World Cup. It's by choice. It's an incredible stat. So implementing girls' programs, implementing boys' programs, inspiring the next generation, connecting our national team players to our youth, creating role models. So vitally important. Content. We talked at the start about data, which links to content. So important. Creating content, most people are on their phones. 88% of Asian fans engage mostly on social media through their phones, through the content side of things. As we know, everyone's walking around with a camera. It's low-hanging fruit. I'd like to tell a story, and obviously he's not here, but I got to witness it, and I've seen the revolution of this. By one choice, one moment that our MAs can implement, and that's creating content, video content. In 2022, I was lucky enough to join FIFA for the FIFA Legends program at the Qatar World Cup. Incredible experience playing with some of my heroes and superstars. But what was profoundly important was President Gianni decided at that moment in 2022 that he was going to build his social profile. Whether people like it or not, of course he's the president, but I'll tell you what, everybody sitting in the room today would be able to tell you that you feel connected to Gianni in some way, shape or form. I'll tell you why, because when he goes to children's hospitals, we see it. When he compliments the MAs and says, oh, we're opening a football pitch, we see it. He's obviously got a content producer that follows him around and reports on what he's doing. Over 3.5 million followers, which is that huge? Of course it is. Okay, because he reports what he's doing and we feel like we're talking to him and seeing him from an everyday basis. You can do that in your own MAs as well. It's the little things. Reporting on players. We talk about women's football. Profile the players in women's football. Profile the next generation of men's football. Youth football. The fans, volunteers. Basically, if you can change and put one short video on your social media or on your website, it'll change everything. But it's about consistency. Utilising different elements of Canva or CapCut, if you haven't heard of it. If I can use Canva, which I'm not very good at creating content, then any one of you can use Canva. If we bring all these set plays together, and you make a promise to yourself that this low-hanging fruit is about committing to the business to increase revenue, increase connection with you and your MAs. I'm telling you now, we'll sit here next week and stand here next year and we'll be able to say, this is the opportunity that we've faced. These are the things that we've grown. This is the data set by these small things. So I wanted to be able to connect what I've done as a General Secretary, what I've done as a player by working hard and being patient and utilising the small things and the small details. I spoke about qualifying for World Cups. Everybody wants to qualify for the World Cup. It comes down to data, which is unlocking sponsorship money and revenue. Women's football, it's going to expand your audience. Grassroots, it builds a base. And digital, it absolutely amplifies reach. So from my perspective, as a former player who played for over 15 years in the national team, I wanted to say that data builds trust, women and girls football opens doors, and it opens a lot of doors. More than you think, but it's about the belief in wanting to stick to it. Grassroots fuels talent, and digital, especially in this day, and age, it scales everything, absolutely everything. We saw the video as we come in today about the last couple of days to the team at AFC. Done an incredible job. Your storytelling, not just for the presidents and general secretaries that are sitting here, for everybody that you're representing back in your MAs. It's about structure, it's about process, it's about consistency, but most importantly, it's about patience. I wanted to play something because as I was building this presentation, it was vitally obvious to me that reflecting on my journey, not by chance, by choice, it was very, very evident to me that me as a footballer and transferring that has provided this opportunity, and I'll explain after I show this video.
Kellen has it getting in wide here towards Garriock. Garriock, oh, superb third goal. Fine header by Heather Garriock. Scored a couple of goals back in the last World Cup. This will give her terrific confidence and terrific satisfaction. And Australia now lead by 3-0.
Two key things I wanted to point out. See this celebration? It was orchestrated. It wasn't by chance that we all did this together. We planned it. See the header? I can tell you I've scored one header in my international career, and it's that one. And the gentleman that was up for AFC Coach of the Year, Trevor Morgan, was my coach. And every week I would ask him, Trev, I want to score a goal with my head. And I'd go to where he was coaching at Westfield Sports High, and I'd go there. And that goal and that header was called the motorbike header. I did it second nature, because the day before, in our match day -1, the ball come over, and 10 times as the ball come over, I got up, did a motorbike header. It's the same in business. You reenact, you rehearse. When things come to you, you do it second nature, okay? This, however, besides the goal, this is probably one of my favourite moments, because it spoke to me about structure, process, consistency and patience. But more importantly, what I realised building this presentation was this. Did anyone watch the 2004 Olympic Games? Does anyone know who this is? Ray gun? It went viral? Well, guess what? I was the original 20 years ago. The difference is I didn't go viral. And I'm standing here. So a call to action, just to wrap everything up, because it's really important that we do, is that you don't need more money. You need better set plays. Regardless of what they are, they're your own set plays in your own MAs. Start tomorrow. One digital database, one diversity check, one school platform, and one story to tell. We run the set plays, we grow the game, and inspire a continent. Let me finish by this. See this ball? This is the reason why we're here. For the last 5 days, we haven't seen a football. We've all sat here and talked about football, but this is your purpose, and this is your reason why. So when you go back to your MAs, and when you look at what your purpose is, have a look at this football and go for your dreams. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Heather, for your presentation. We would like to open the floor for questions, if any.
Good morning. Heather, thank you so much for the beautiful presentation and the vibrant energy that you're giving to the crowd. Firstly, I'm a big fan of what you personally are doing for the women's football. And I personally, since I joined the federation since 2020, one of the first strategies I saw is the Australian strategy on how to promote the game. I'm a big fan of the Mini Rose program, but I do have like a couple of questions. So is there in Australia like a federation specifically for schools, football in schools? And how do you connect as a federation with those schools? And at what age you cut off until you give them to the clubs? So what is your main priority as a federation for schools?
Thanks, Lemia, and thank you for the work you're doing. It's incredible. You're an inspiration to us all. Schools are vitally important, like I said, and we run a Mini Ruse program, which is a grassroots program that's from the age of 6 to 12, but actually we're about to change the age from 6 to 9 or 5 to 9, because when you get to that level, obviously your golden years with the technical development between 9 and 14 years old is really important. But being able to have a program so the school teachers within the school know exactly what to teach. But if I be honest, it's more about kids falling in love with the game at that age and just putting the ball beside them. So that's from a school's point of view. But from a technical development point of view, obviously we then connect our schools to then our clubs, which is important, and then allow the players to fall in love. But the technical development side of things are critical. However, I can't say that we are getting it 100% right in Australia. We're a start, and but there's a bit of work to do as well. But we're open and happy to be able to share any information from an Australian perspective. We've obviously got a huge participation base, but again, being able to convert that and having lifelong football enthusiasts back in the game is really important to us.
All right, can I ask a second question? So Heather, I know that Football Australia, that you have like 50 years or 70 years of legacy behind. All of those women who built women's football, and they were there from day one. You've recognized those women, and I've seen on your website the whole story you were telling about them, and they are the biggest driver for what's happening right now. And we also seen Australia in the 2023 World Cup. Congratulations on a great performance. I was there when Sam Kerr did the equalizer against England, and I thought there was an earthquake in Australia. I was like, what's happening? So congratulations for that great work. In Saudi, we do have a great story to tell when it comes to women's football, but unfortunately, we did not document that any time during the past 20 years. So as an expert, what is your advice for Saudi Football Federation to recognize or to capture at least the story that happened 20 years ago until today?
That's an absolutely great question, and we can say as the Matildas captured their story, not quite the history that you're referring to in a documentary. I think it's vitally important for anyone that come before you to be able to make sure you thank the history of the game. Paving the way is so vitally important. Obviously yourself, Lemia, being one of them, but I talk about the content piece, and we had a brief chat a couple of days ago about content. I got in trouble off my president because I was saying to you it's so simple with content, but being able to storytell in a meaningful way. There is nothing better than understanding that the increase in women's football has been 70% in schools. How do people know that? I knew that because I researched that. I know what's being done within Saudi because I'm researching and constantly interested. So I think the storytelling piece, but most importantly, being able to put it on your website and being able to make sure that you do say thank you to who come before you, because that is vitally important, because actually they're the roots of why we do things. And what you're doing today is about paving the way for who comes next and leaving the jersey in a better place. So that's my advice to yourself.
Thank you.
Good morning, Heather. Thank you so much for a great presentation. And when you showed the ball, I think one important suggestion for our next conference, please, let's make sure we play some football. My question is, being ex-talented player, being a board member, being now a general secretary, especially with a bit of tough president. How can you compare from the perspective of the pressure between all these three different roles?
Yeah, great question. You've got to be built differently. I love pressure. I had Yasuko that was stressing out because I rocked up 10 minutes before this presentation, but the way I got ready today was the way I prepared for a game. It was music on, having fun, enjoying it. And so pressure is a privilege, but as a player, it's different. You're self-centered, actually, as a player. While you play in a team sport and you play football as a team, it's all about you. It's all about doing the little things for yourself. When you transition into a coach, which we've got some coaches here, Andy, you can explain more to this. It's about the team. It's about being selfless as opposed to selfish, and it being about the team. And then when you go into the boardroom, again, you transition that into pressure decisions. Do we bid for a World Cup? Do we decide that we don't want to have a program part of Football Australia? That's not as much pressure as the General Secretary's role, as that we need to decide what we're doing in the direction of Australian sport or Australian football. And that pressure, I thrive off that, and that's the one thing I've really enjoyed in this role, because you're almost, it's the decisions that you make that impacts. For me, but I'm built a bit differently. I'm not normal, but at the same time, I think doing the things well. This morning I went for a run. You got to have that balance and be able to handle the pressure in different ways. But I think why I'm here today is my football career has obviously taught me so many incredible things along the way, and most importantly is that there's no journey that's always just one way. And I've learned so much from the different areas. I said when I first got this role, which was important, that I've actually played every position, and for the referees that are in the room, yep, I've refereed as well. So no, it's again, Yasser, thanks for your question. And the pressure I love, others may not, but it's something that I think is really important to be able to thrive and be the best you can be. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much, President Yasser and Lamia, for your questions. Heather, could I please ask you to remain on stage. And now we would like to invite FIFA Council Member, President of the Saudi Football Federation, Mr. Yasser Al-Mishal, for the pennant presentations. Thank you, President. Thank you, Heather. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session dives into a fascinating frontier, exploring how technology and intelligence can empower the game of football. To share insights on this rapidly evolving landscape, please join me in welcoming Mr. Regis Yunan, Global Vice President of Keynote. Welcome, Regis. The floor is yours.
That means that if John Aloisi can score this goal, Australia will be there.
Are you sure?
I'm trying to do my maths. I can hardly.
4-2.
I can hardly
He wins it for us, John.
Here's Aloisi for a place in the
You
World
win it
Cup.
for us.
He scored! Australia have done it!
Come on!
John Aloisi, the Confederations Cup hero, has done it in the biggest game of all.
Come on, Australia! Johnny Warren!
At last, at long last,
So every match has a turning point, a tackle that changes the momentum of the game, a leader that really takes the team on their back to try and shift the energy and the focus of the play, and sometimes it's actually just the display of individual brilliance that really shifts the strategic momentum of the game. Now, for Australia, it was this penalty, John Aloisi in 2005, sending us to the World Cup for the first time since 1974. And I believe that for football, AI is the turning point and the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. My name is Regis Yunan, as my esteemed colleague Tia just mentioned, and I'm really excited to be talking about an innovative topic in a region that has so much energy and so much creativity. I was born in Baghdad in Iraq, and my family escaped the Iraq-Iran war when I was 2 years of age. We moved to Sydney, Australia. I grew up in Sydney, and I'm sure like many of you sitting here in the room, I had a dream to be a professional footballer. Now, the fact that I'm standing here talking to you about AI, it's clear that that dream necessarily didn't come true, but football gave me many, many things. It taught me resilience, it taught me teamwork, it taught me leadership, but most importantly, it gave me, in a new country, a sense of belonging. And it gave me the ability to assimilate into a new culture, to make friends, to be part of, something cohesive as a team. So today I want to take us on a little journey together, and I want to talk about many of the challenges that I'm sure many of the member associations face today, and I heard a lot in the conversations that I was having with many of you folks over the last couple of days that, one of the biggest challenges is, having access to the necessary resources to really bring your vision to reality. And so at the end of this presentation, I want you to be able to walk away to answer 3 questions. Why now? Where do I start? And how do I go about it? Just by a show of hands, does anyone know what happened on this date? November 30, 2022. It's when ChatGPT arrived. Nothing really prepared us for that day. OpenAI released the most advanced consumer-based technology that was ever available to us, and they did it for free. We were all suddenly able to access this super intelligence that was sitting in a device in the palm of our hands, and this was all with our ability just to express ourselves in natural language. And I remember vividly, I paused that day when I first had a play with it, and it was a profound moment for me personally. I recall sending an email to my team, and I said, listen, forget everything we knew. We need to recalibrate ourselves. We need to recalibrate ourselves for a new paradigm, a new future. And I'm sure you'd agree, nothing has really been the same ever since. And what's interesting and a little scary is the pace of change has been nothing like we've seen ever before. ChatGPT had over 100 million users in 2 months. And as of October, there are 800 million weekly users on that application. Just here in September, they released Sora 2, which is a text-to-video model that transforms written prompts into high-quality, photorealistic videos. And interestingly enough, Sora had 1 million users sign up in 2 days. That's faster than ChatGPT. So everything's happening at a breakneck speed. Make no mistake, we are really in a mass disruption moment. If you take a look at this chart, you'll see that from the Fortune 100 companies in 1994, only 22% of these companies survived and are available and operating today. That's 80% of these companies no longer exist. Just 30 or so years ago. Now, my question to you is, if some of the biggest giants in the enterprise with billions of resources can be swept away in and amongst disruptive change, do you really think that football is immune? Think about our own game. Leicester winning the Premier League in 2016. Think about Morocco making the semi-finals. They did this not because they had more money. They did this because they played smarter. And AI really is our ability, collectively, to operate with intelligence. So I've been fortunate enough, as I said earlier, to have a number of conversations with you over the last few days, and I kept hearing the same thing. And that thing was, it's really hard to realize our ambitions. It's hard to realize our ambitions because we don't have the capability, we don't have the capacity, and we're really struggling to find the capital. So capability, capacity, capital were the things that came through, and the challenges that I really heard over and over again in conversations. Now, I see many heads nodding out there that these are the things that you find challenging, particularly as developing member associations. And I think these things have been happening for decades now. These 3 C's are really standing in the way between your vision and bringing that vision to reality. And so I fully empathize and appreciate that this is the defense that we're all up against. So at this point you might be thinking, Regis, that's all fine, but really, where do we start? So I want to say that that's probably the right question, because AI is not really about deploying a particular tool or a co-pilot. It's about building the foundation that connects your people to the right intelligence, to the right processes, to ensure that you're able to ultimately drive business performance. And so I want to leave you with a blueprint, a plan to kind of think about a mental model to start embarking on this AI transformation. So the first thing is, you really need to understand the work that's going on inside your organization. And that's understanding the work at a much more granular level. So you need to think about, in the context of the roles that you have in your organization, what are the tasks associated with those roles? What are the workflows inside the organization that connect all of the work that's going on inside your ability to kind of execute on your strategy? Because not having an understanding of the data at a granular level is going to be challenging for you to ultimately identify, where do you start to prioritize your investments? What are the use cases that you want to go after? And that leads us on to the second step, which is really, once you have established a data foundation and you have established an understanding of the work at a task level, you then have the ability to assess and plan and make the relevant investments to really start to tackle where is the best ROI going to take place based on the investments that you're making. So, I like to kind of refer to this as very much a GPS guide for your AI transformation. And then once you have that established plan, you start to take action. So this is where you identify the relevant tools that you will invest in order to start to address those specific use cases. And then lastly, it's an opportunity for you to really start to unlock and measure value. Now that value isn't necessarily just determined by financial metrics, top line growth, cost out of your organization, maybe risk mitigation. A key component of that is the human element. And this is about unlocking capability and being able to invest in your people in order to reskill, upskill, reallocate, repurpose capability to other areas of the business. And so I think there's a responsibility on us as we start to think about, transforming our organizations and introducing, the concept of digital workers inside our organizations to think about the impact that it has on, people, the human capital inside our business. Now, I just don't want to talk about AI with a bunch of slides, sit here and sort of, talk about the theory necessarily. I wanted to spend a little time and actually just give you a live demo of some of the AI capabilities that are available to you. So if we can go ahead and switch to my demo screen, please. Okay, hey Cove, can you hear me now? Okay, it's Regis. We're live at the AFC presentation. They say don't ever, bring children and pets and stuff live on demonstrations. So let's try that again. Cove, it's Regis here. Can you hear me okay? We're live at the AFC. We're about to go into this presentation. Team, I don't think the audio is working, unfortunately. No, that's muted. So, can you hear me okay, Cove? Okay. Well, that's actually failed, so I don't know why the audio is not working, guys. But let me get out of this and give you an example of the capability of the product. Just one moment here. So you can see my screen here, right? There are elements here. Let me just go ahead and try this by just dictating to it. Hey, Cove, I'm going to ask you just to have a little bit of fun. Guys, can you no audio here? It's not working. Yeah. All right. So whilst we're doing that, basically, I'm going to just give you a couple of examples of leveraging the capability. In this instance, we'll walk through ChatGPT. We're also going to have an example with Anthropic's product, Claude, to do a live demonstration and show you some of the capability that you can leverage to drive some of the automation inside your member association. So whilst we're doing this, let's try that again. Okay. So, we'll be there in a sec, guys. So apologies. Won't be a second. Is it working? Should we try? Try it again. Hey, Cove, can you hear me now? We're live again. Hopefully the audio's working. All right, so maybe we're gonna just have to type things in and not dictate by voice. So let me just go ahead and try that. And then we'll, if that doesn't work for whatever reason, we will make it old school and we'll go back to the presentation. So, okay. So let's have a little bit of fun. So let me see if we can capture this. So Cove, I'm going to ask you to act in the role of Cristiano Ronaldo's chef, and I want you to create a 3-course menu. Your dinner guest is going to be Lionel Messi this evening. So I want you to create a 3-course menu, poking fun a little bit about their, their relationship. Maybe talk a little bit about the concept of who's the GOAT, the Ballon d'Or, et cetera, et cetera. So go ahead and try that. So we'll see if this Wi-Fi is working and dictate. Okay. All right. So you'll see now that, I mean, the aim here was to kind of do it by voice, but we can go ahead and dictate and, wait for, there we go. So, okay, so here's a little playful overview. We're going to have the rivalry salad, you can see, basically poking fun at two sides of greatness. There's the main meal is going to be the battle of the Ballon d'Or, and you'll see it's a, they've called it the Golden Goat Tagliatelle, and we're going to have some goat's milk gelato at the end of it. So that's poking a little bit of fun at that. But let's get a little serious. I want to actually do something that's a little bit more practical, something that you could, take away and use specifically inside your organization. So I'm going to ask it to, create a 90-day plan for a football association to generate sponsorship revenue using AI match highlights and also mobile scouting. So you can see, within seconds, the GPT has already started to put the plan together, specifically structure it in phases. You'll see that they're talking about outputs. Now, I might just ask for it to, can you now? Let's go ahead and produce it in Arabic. All right, so really the point here is that if we can go back to the slide deck, please. To give you a very simple example, slide deck, please, of being able to leverage that capability to drive some of the automation that's required. So if we go back to the problem statement that we had from the outset, which was how do you leverage technology in order to, turn your vision into reality? You've just seen, the capability of the GPT to really become, the kind of great equalizer. It gives you capability, have access to world-class expertise on demand. It gives you capacity to automate some of the work that really drains some of your staff from an administrative perspective, and then ultimately it enables you to inject capital inside your organization by unlocking new ways to be able to generate revenue. So, I started to think about how do you think about AI as the bridge really to let you kind of drive execution inside the organization. So why does this matter? If you think about the capability that some of this technology has to make us efficient, to ultimately, drive costs out of the business, it will help protect budgets, and it generates the necessary cash flows required to really start to grow our associations. So with that fuel, ultimately, you can start to kind of reinvest some of that capital back into, grassroots, into youth, into women's football, and other sort of competitions, so that the sport really does start to kind of prosper over the generations. Now, for developing member associations, I think the big opportunity here is the ability to leverage AI to kind of leapfrog, and essentially you don't need decades to kind of build the infrastructure to start to build some of these foundations to drive some of the outcomes that you're looking for. But with a mobile phone, for example, you could scout talent, you could leverage an AI camera to generate match footage, you can start to produce AI highlights that you can start to package up for sponsorship ready content, and these are things that are available for you today. Now, every organisation, whether you're a football club, whether you're a federation, or just a business, goes through a range of stages of AI maturity. So it's not a case where you necessarily just kind of flip the switch on, and then ultimately your organisation starts to become AI first or AI enabled. It is very much a journey, a curve that you need to climb over time. And so I want to take you briefly through these stages. So for the first stage, which we tried to see a little earlier, but had some technical difficulties, but leveraging AI as an assistant. Now, this is where most organisations start, which is leveraging the AI to summarise documents, for example, to draft emails, to produce rough drafts of plans that you can start to kind of engage with. And this phase is really about driving cost efficiency. It's about doing the same work faster and really freeing up time. So think of it really as having an extra pair of hands to enable you to kind of augment yourself or 10x yourself. The next stage is leveraging AI as a co-pilot. So at this stage, it really starts to become a creative partner to co-write, for example, strategic plans. You can create marketing content, build sponsorship proposals alongside you. You can really start to ask it, like I did a moment ago, draft me a 90-day sponsorship plan, or create a youth scouting initiative proposal that I could consider. And the key shift here is it's not about you doing the work alone. It's you being a kind of a co-working partner with some of this AI capability. The next stage you start to move into is AI as a thought partner. Now, this is where things really start to get interesting. You leverage the AI to start to model different scenarios. So for example, you could ask, what would be, I suppose, the financial impact of running 2 regional tournaments instead of 1? And let the AI run all of those different scenario models for you, compare attendance, compare costs, sponsorship value. So it's no longer, just helping you write the plan. It's actually helping you as a thought partner to, do some scenario analysis to decide, what are the best options for your time investment and the capital investment. And then the last phase is really the rise of agentic AI. This is where, many organizations are ultimately heading. That's the ultimate destination, where you start to have a swarm of agents inside the organization that act autonomously, that reason, that execute complex workflows on their own. And so if you could picture, for example, a sponsorship agent. So that agent could autonomously go out and identify specific partners. It could identify the chief marketing officer or the head of marketing within those organizations start to guess email aliases and draft sponsorship proposals, even executing outreach emails and responding to those emails. So these are not futuristic capabilities. These AI agents are actually available out there today. So that's kind of the future. That's where things are going. I wanted to just touch on one case study just to kind of bring some of this capability to life. So has anyone seen the Brad Pitt movie Moneyball? Yeah? So think about this case study in a very similar context. Brighton, Albion Hove, a premiership football club. Really, this club kind of refused to accept its limitations, I would say. We've got Patrick here. They're not Manchester City. They don't have the budget of Real. Our context, your context, the member association. So, I understand you might be thinking, that's Brighton. We're not a Premier League football club. But the truth is, and I would argue that the principles are very much the same. You can leverage apps out there. You don't need a data analytics lab to be able to do smarter scouting. There are apps like AI Scout and Football. I have no associations with these apps, but the examples of those apps that you could leverage for player scouting, giving you access to talent that might be sitting in regional areas, for example. You have the ability to kind of start to think about, how do I build much more intelligent operations? How do I allow AI to take care of some of the administrative tasks that are available, inside the organisation? Things like writing match reports, translating documents, automating schedules, for example. That's new capacity that you could access without increasing headcount. And then lastly, this concept of sustainable growth. So being able to use AI to generate, sponsor reports, for example, produce real-time highlight clips. You can leverage the capability to start to measure fan engagement, for example, and turn all of that data into revenue opportunities. So I think, the lesson from Brighton is pretty simple for me. It's, how do you use AI to start to sort of outthink organizations that are more well-funded than you? How do you start to use the intelligence to ultimately kind of create leverage and institutionalize this capability inside your associations so that you can start to compete more effectively? So I would argue that if you're thinking we're just not ready yet, maybe I'll think about this next year, or we'll start to kind of put this into our strategic plan, and we'll try and focus on some of those investments in a few years' time. I would say that the AI journey that you need to embark on isn't something you should be thinking about in 2030 or 2035. There is a significant amount of urgency in terms of your ability to act, I would say. And so you can do things now, like I mentioned, scouting and AI highlights and, driving automation in your operations. Next, you can start to think about more advanced capabilities like building data hubs, or thinking about investing in data science capabilities to build predictive models. And then in the future, really thinking about more comprehensive end-to-end AI ecosystems that include things like, fan engagement agents or sponsorship agents, for example. But, every journey really starts with, just one simple step. And I would encourage you as leaders of these organizations that you need to model the behavior from the top down. You should start to familiarize yourself with these capabilities and your ability as an individual to start to kind of increase your capacity and capability. So you saw briefly with the product demonstration that you could easily create strategic plans, plans that are easily executable in the short term. So for example, create a 90-day plan that really wants to focus on driving sponsorship revenue. Now, if you are lower on that AI maturity curve, start to think small, start to tackle use cases that are easily accessible to you. And then the more advanced ones, you can start to make greater investments. And I think once you start to prove value with some of these use cases, then I'm sure your exco will start to kind of support you to make additional investments in some of these capabilities. But definitely there's an opportunity to make an impact and start in the next 90 days. So this slide is really goes down to this core concept of what is the role of humans and how can humans ultimately end up being augmented by some of this capability. And I have a vision for this concept of no more individual contributors. And by that, I mean you have the capability to enable your people to have access to this intelligence that ultimately enables them to be exponential contributors. The orchestrators of limitless resources that are both financial and also digital and human capital, but to become exponential contributors. And if you start to think about this concept of exponential contributors, not only can your people start to 10x themselves in terms of output, but your teams will start to become exponential teams, and then ultimately you'll start to build exponential organizations. And that's the vision that I have for organizations that are really starting to embrace and institutionalize some of this capability. Now, by the way, I have seen this already in the enterprise. I've worked with some of the largest companies in the world in the current role that I have. HSBC, Standard Chartered Bank, Schneider, Spotify, the list goes on. And you start to see that this becomes part of their DNA. They start to enable their people and really have an AI-first philosophy in order to drive outsizable kind of outcomes for the organization. So again, going back to what we started first, really the questions are, why now? As I mentioned, disruption is coming at us. And now is the opportunity for you to, even as individuals, start to build your own capability and knowledge in this area. Where do I start? You start by getting an understanding of the work that's going on inside the organization. And so mapping this work is not a manual exercise. There are tools out there that will help you understand what are the tasks associated with all of the roles that you have inside your organization. What does an operations manager do? What does a finance manager do? What does an HR manager do, etc. And then how do I go about it? So, if you can leverage AI to remove some of the barriers that we discussed at the outset of this presentation, remove the barriers of capacity, remove the barrier of access to capability, and ultimately access to capital, I think AI can really be the great equalizer here. And so hopefully this gives you something to think about in terms of your ability to leverage this capability as member associations to start to think about how do I leapfrog from where we are today to really compete in the environment that I'm operating in. So the question isn't whether AI will shape football. I think the question ultimately will be, will you lead the change as leaders of these organisations, or will you be the one that has to follow it? That's a question that you need to kind of ponder on, I would say. And I think, it's our duty, your duty, I think, to strengthen the game for generations to come. And, when I kind of think about my involvement with the game as a young refugee growing up in Australia, and what it did for me to enable me to assimilate into a new culture. And, coming full circle, I have 3 teenage kids. I've got a 19-year-old boy. I've got twin girls that are 16, and I have a 1-year-old. That's not him, but I now have a 1-year-old. And I think about, what is football going to look like for him? I want him to be a part of this community, and I want him to play, and I want him to have access to all the development opportunities. And it's you people in the room that are actually leading all of this. So thank you for this, and I really appreciate your time. And I hope that you've took away just a couple of things that will give you a little bit of an incentive to start to inject some of this capability inside your organisations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Regis. That was truly insightful. We'd like to open the floor for questions now.
Good morning, and thank you for that interesting presentation. So I have 2 questions, actually. The first one is, what are the risks and disadvantages of AI in the football industry, and how
Sorry,
can
I
we...
can't hear you.
Oh, what are the risks and disadvantages of AI in the football industry, and how can we mitigate them? And my second question is, so in our organization, we do use AI. We use the basic ones like Gemini, ChatGPT, Zoom AI. But my team, we're always reminded not to be over-reliant with AI. I mean, it's an excellent tool if you know how to use it, but it's not a truth teller. But yeah, with that said, can you recommend any other AI tools that can improve the effectiveness and efficiency of a football organization when it comes to off-the-pitch management?
Right. Okay, so risks and challenges. I think that in any organization, when you're bringing in technology, and in particular AI technology, there needs to be policies in place, guardrails in place around the use of those technologies, depending on the type of data that you're putting into some of these tools. So for example, you don't want to put in any PII, for personally identifiable data, inside these tools. You also have configuration settings in these tools that enable you to not allow these frontier models, these LLMs, to leverage your data to be able to train their models. Okay, so there are some basic guidelines and policies that I would put in place, but like anything, it's important to not only just give people access to the tools, but there has to be a level of enablement and kind of training and development to build some level of AI fluency around, how can you leverage these tools as part of your workflow. So I would suggest, thinking about, some of the guardrails, some of the policies, and some of the enablement that's required in order to leverage these tools inside your organisation. Number one. The second question is around tooling. Look, there's no shortage of AI tools out there for you to leverage. The list is just so enormous. I would have to understand the specific use case, but I would say AI is just another tool, right? It's just another capability that you could leverage in order to drive better business performance. Having said that, I would also argue it's going to be one of the most disruptive technologies that we've seen probably in our lifetime, in terms of the way that it will redesign the way work gets done, and it will redesign the way humans interact with the world, essentially. And so my advice to you would be, don't be necessarily reliant and outsource your cognition to these models. There is an element of risk of being able to do that, but they are not human. They are not sentient. We have not achieved super intelligence yet. Okay, so I would be looking at leveraging these tools to create leverage, to become 10x, to do the things, create a better output for me as an individual, and then my teams exponentially, to allow you as human beings to do higher order work. Focus on vision, focus on relationships, focus on the things that make us truly human, and allow the AI to do the things that will actually give you much more scale and much more efficiency and automation. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, brilliant presentation, and you have given us like where it will be, but still for the understanding of the member associations and the leaders, like the chat GTPs are the very basics, which is nothing going to change what you are talking about, the 10x. So therefore, what is, as for you, like to have the competitive advantage, yeah? Because at the end, football is in the marketplace, and to keep that competitive advantage, AI is going to be an integral part of any organization and every organization. So therefore, my question to you is that for a football body to have that competitive advantage in the marketplace, and you think how long it will be like, where it has to be the most fundamental part of your organization, otherwise you cease to exist. It's a bit scary, but then, and also whether you recommend that you need to have an AI capability to achieve that transformation, and from AI first to reach to, that automation phase. That is what, if you can suggest by when, and what should be the first step, and how it should reach to ultimately, where we don't know, because it is fast evolving on a daily basis. But then we are ready to meet that challenge and be there in the marketplace and rule as we are the #1 sport in the world.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
a great question. And you're absolutely right. Football is in the attention business. I think a gentleman mentioned that yesterday. You're competing with so many different products for attention, and particularly when you think about the younger generation, the way that they're growing up in an era where attention is really the major constraint. I've got teenage kids, and I know how much time they spend on their phone, and that's a difficult kind of business to be in. And so you need to, as a business, as member associations, as developing member associations, leverage and harness any capability that will give you an outsized competitive advantage. And AI is that capability. Now, like any transformation, there are many elements to a successful transformation. And culture is one of those. And this has to be modeled from the top down. So as leaders of these organizations, you have to have the courage to lean into, what could be, a difficult and challenging scenario where you have many people inside your organizations that are resistant to change because they like doing the things that they've done and they know how to do those things. And so I think the unlock for many organizations is you can't just drop technology into an organization and think that's going to solve the problem. A key aspect to a successful transformation and an AI transformation is the cultural element. Actually, you have to bring your people along on that journey. And as leaders, you have to model that behavior, would be my biggest advice. Model that behavior from the top down and, transform the organization by leveraging culture as a lever.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Khalil Salam, General Secretary of West Asia. AI is definitely transforming industries, and football hasn't seen it yet. But when you look at certain positions in football, like managers or referees, these decisions that are based on live data analytics and the ability to maneuver quickly will be really in competition with AI models that are developed over the coming couple of years. You might see those professions completely disappear because today an AI model is able to make tactical decisions in a much better way given the data set that they're analyzing at all points during a match, better than a manager potentially. And you're going to see a differential in entities that have the capability to develop their small language models and able to really differentiate between the people that have these small models for understanding their own data, that has the data about their players and their tactics and so on, with others that are just using generic data or generic language models like ChatGPT. So there's really a threat around the football industry in that certain positions will no longer be competitive, and at a certain point it will be the AI small language model of Man City against Liverpool, and there's no need for anyone else, and they're going to take over. So it's going to change the landscape completely of what we know today. Today we're sitting in a room with general secretaries and presidents that have more of a judgment call. They have to, there's some politics playing in, there's some economics, so there's still a role to be played. But in football, in other positions in football, these positions will completely disappear because I don't need to hire a coach anymore. I just need to invest in my data servers and my small language model to ensure that my country or my team has the best tactical AI coach. So I don't know how that will change the industry really, but it's going to create a huge competitive advantage for people that have resources and entities that have resources that can train their own models to ensure that they get their best coach. So, I mean, that differential in football may be more of a comment rather than a question, but that differential in football will definitely be very clear over the next years with the people that have and the people that do not have the resources necessary to build the infrastructure for creating their agents.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. That race is happening outside of football in many areas, as you know. And I don't know, I do fundamentally believe in the human edge. I do believe that at some point, there are certain things that the AI will not be able to do. Now, in your example, yes, when it comes to data science, modeling, tactics, building kind of small language models to help drive some of that decision making, maybe those elements are kind of outsourced to a machine. I was talking to Trevor a few days ago, and he was explaining a story as a coach about making changes on the field. And the way that he described making these changes on the field, on who to make who to replace and why and so on, it was interesting because I reflected on that in the context of this type of discussion, which is to what extent would you let a machine dictate some of those changes based on data, as opposed to, I know this player, I know what they're going through, I have a personal relationship with them, and they are on or not on today for a particular reason. So there are still data points that the small language models will not have access to, that humans will have access to. And that's the relationship side. Now, is that an edge? Is that a capability that drives some differentiation? I don't know, but we'll see how it all plays out. It's going to be an interesting time to see how things evolve, absolutely.
Thank you once again for the very insightful presentation. I'm a big fan of AI actually, but I've always have this, among some concerns I have, that the errors that even the AI generate quite a number of errors if we are not careful. It's about learning, right? Through AI, you actually can learn a lot. But the flip side is that AI actually can make you not learn anymore because you become lazy. You become over-reliant on it. You know, you just depend on it, whether it's languages, simple, even a basic thing like English. You can rely on the AI to help you, and therefore you don't have to learn better English, or even, that is just a small level of learning, but bigger thing like creativity, decision-making, if you're relying on AI to do all this. So what is your recommendation that how do we mitigate things of, that instead of enabling us to learn, it became like this enabler?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I mentioned earlier, what we shouldn't do is outsource all of our cognition to an AI. And AI is good at recognizing patterns in data and making predictions, right? And so if you think about what are the activities, what are the use cases that you could leverage AI to augment you to do a number of kind of repetitive tasks that enable you to kind of scale yourself, I would think about pointing the AI and AI agents and automating workflows to execute on those things that drive more efficiency in the way that you execute. I think AI is also a good creative partner. So I talk to custom GPTs that I've built as a career coach, as an advisor for certain strategic decisions, but I don't outsource the work and the decision to the AI, right? And so, and you're absolutely right. I mean, AI still hallucinates in many examples, and so you should not be 100% reliant on the output of the AI as that is the gospel truth. And you still need to kind of engage with the output as the expert, as the domain expert, to validate the output. So, it will ultimately be kind of like a symbiotic relationship, but certainly, I would encourage you not to kind of outsource all of the things that make us uniquely human to an AI.
Thank you very much for your questions.
Thank you very much.
Regis, thank you once again. Allow me to invite Mr. Yasser Al-Mustahil, FIFA Council Member and President of the Saudi Football Federation, for the panel presentation. Thank you, President. Thank you, Regis. We will now take a short break and reconvene at 10:50 a.m. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as we are about to commence the AFC Member Associations and Regional Associations Presidents and General Secretaries Conference 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly remind you to switch off or set your mobile phones to silent mode while inside the conference hall. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand to request a microphone, and we will be pleased to pass the floor to you. Simultaneous interpretation is available in Arabic and English. Please use the headsets provided at your seat. Thank you for your kind attention and cooperation.
Check. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start with our next session, we would like to ask you to fill the feedback form and pass it to any of the AFC staff nearby. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your suggestions as they make the next editions more impactful and we can improve continuously. Thank you very much. Moving on with our next session. From youth development and club management to commercial strategy and global branding, City Football Group has redefined how football organizations can grow while staying true to the essence of the game. To share this inspiring story and the lessons behind it, please join me in welcoming Mr. Patrick Knight, Director of Strategy, City Football Group. Welcome, Patrick. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me here today. Dear executives, presidents, general secretaries. Thank you to Secretary General Garriock and President Yasser for your generous hosting and for the invitation to speak. As a bit of a background to myself, I joined City Football Group in 2014. So I've been there in the strategy team for the last 12 years. During that period, I've worked on a range of internal projects, but also the acquisitions of our club interests across the world. It's been fantastic to hear the challenges, the opportunities, and the passion that AFC has, and this is shared by City Football Group. In terms of the passion and why we are all here, as we all know, football is the world's #1 sport. It is the global sport, whether you measure it by revenue, as we do here, whether you measure it by participation, or whether you measure it by viewership and followers. Now, what's fantastic about football is that blue is not driven by one country, as is the case with NFL or basketball and NBA, but it's a global sport. And we share AFC's vision to ensure that football is the #1 sport in the Asian continent too. That passion for football has allowed City Football Group to build a global business. And ultimately, as well as the business, we think that we can make lives better, as we all do, through football. City Football Group's ambition is to be the world's best sports entertainment organisation. I say the best sports organisation, not because we're looking at other sports so much, but because we want to uphold ourselves to the highest standards. And this means the highest standards on the pitch, but also off the pitch. For those of you that don't know, please just allow me to share a little bit about the City Football Group club portfolio. Of course, the journey started with Manchester City in the English Premier League in 2008. We have subsequently added clubs in Europe, in Belgium, in Italy, in Spain, and in France. In the Americas, New York, in MLS, clubs in Brazil, Montevideo, and a partner club in Bolivia. And then, of course, in Asia, where we have club presence in Japan with Yokohama Marinos, in Melbourne, in Shenzhen in China, and Mumbai in India. So this is a truly global portfolio. In total, the leagues in which City Football Group has a club account for more than 60% of global football revenue. Now, this portfolio, broadly speaking, is justified on two bases. The first is a commercial rationale. So this is City Football Group wanting to be in markets that either are today, like the Premier League, or could in the future be global players in the world football economy. This is about revenue generation and that driving enterprise value growth. The second aspect is around football talent and player development. So markets such as Uruguay, which has a population of only 3 million people, but consistently ranks in the top 10 for talent production. The same with Belgium and to an extent France as well. So there are really these dual angles for City Football Group's club portfolio. Ultimately, in both elements, we're driving enterprise value growth for our shareholders. I should also say that the investment model varies between territory as well. In some countries, we are the sole shareholder with 100% ownership of the clubs, as is the case in Manchester City and Melbourne, for example. In other markets, we are either a majority or minority shareholder. This is often the case in AFC member associations, for example. And in some markets, we actually have no shareholding at all, but we operate through a partner club relationship where we provide services, consultancy services, on the football and or commercial side in return for a fee. I think we've spoken about this in previous sessions, particularly when we spoke about the challenges of emerging AFC member associations and needing the sports performance to drive the business performance and fuel that virtuous circle. We see the same thing in the club game. We know that the sporting performance drives the fan base, drives the sponsor interest, drives the revenue, which we can in turn reinvest into the sporting performance. We've been fortunate at City Football Group to have the capital to kickstart that flywheel, and it's helped CFG become the global organisation that it is today. Now, one thing I did want to say about that flywheel is that it takes time, right? So the efforts that Saudi has achieved over the past few years has been absolutely fantastic towards that 2030 vision, but it is a long-term vision. And the same is true of City Football Group. Here I show some of the milestones for Manchester City. So we made the investment in 2008, but it took us 4 years to win our first Premier League. Some of you might remember the famous Aguero 93-20 goal. We opened a training facility 2 years later, expanded the stadium a year after that. And through this period, we started to build our commercial portfolio. We signed a landmark deal with Puma in 2019, who are now our long-term partner to 2030 and beyond. But it took us until 2023 to make our crowning glory in winning the Champions League. So that was a 15-year period during which we had many ups, as you see here, but we also had moments of challenge. We had moments of deep losses, deep disappointment, of setbacks on the pitch, of challenges and setbacks off the pitch too. What I would say is our management team, our ownership, our leadership have shown tremendous patience and belief in that long-term vision, which has allowed us to get through. We often talk about, within CFG, about the 24-hour rule, which is we will never allow a setback to impact us for more than 24 hours. Of course, going out to the Club World Cup in the summer was a disappointment for us personally, but a huge achievement for Al Hilal. We had 24 hours to get over that, and then we went again. It's actually, and players, Heather will know this, but on the pitch, one of the key differentiators of elite talent is their ability to recover from setbacks. Our goalkeeper, former goalkeeper Edison, we asked him to play a very aggressive style of football, to constantly play the ball from the back and to take risks. He would and did make mistakes, but what set him apart was his ability to not change his mindset, to do as we wanted him to do, and to keep playing that style of play. What does this mean from a financial perspective? So this chart plots the revenue of City Football Group over time. Manchester City, back in 2008-09, had revenues of about $100 million, just over. We grew this through broadcast, through sponsorship, through ticketing. We actually 3x'd it over 5 years. But actually after that, you see the growth of City Football Group has been pretty stable at around about 10% per year. And this is driven by two factors. One, the acquisition of the club portfolio, as you see along the bottom, starting with New York and ending with Bahia, but also the growth of Manchester City, as I spoke about. The on-the-pitch performance drove prize money, both Premier League and Champions League, the rights values of which were increasing. Also, the growth in our fan base helped us to drive ticketing revenue, and it also drove that sponsor interest too. In the 24-25 financial year, which we've just concluded, City Football Group will announce revenues of about $1.3 billion, about £1 billion, and we will look to grow that again in the coming years. I spoke about success, and obviously this is the best part of the job. We've been lucky to win titles in Manchester City with our men's team, with our women's team, but also outside of this too. So some of you will hopefully recognize success in Australia, in Japan, in India with Mumbai, and also in China, where we promoted our team from the 3rd division, from League One, China League One, into the CSL. But success means different things for us in different leagues. Clearly, not every club can have the resources or the capability of Manchester City, and so our targets vary by team. Actually, 7 of the clubs that we invested in, we acquired in the 2nd or 3rd division. So success for them looks very different. As I spoke about, Shenzhen have managed to promote into CSL, but they are now in a relegation fight. We had a really important victory yesterday in our fight against relegation. What does this mean practically for people who work at City Football Group? It means that you have to watch a lot of football and have a lot of subscriptions. So actually yesterday, we had 8 City Football Group teams playing. The first match kicked off here at 8 a.m. in Japan. The last match finished at midnight in Bolivia with Bolivar. So if you want to sleep, then don't work at City Football Group. Let's bring this back to the fans. So football is ultimately, as we know, all about the fans. And I wanted to touch upon the brand strategy for City Football Group. In general, City Football Group is not an outward-facing brand. I think football executives, of course, will know us, but in general, we focus on our clubs. For some clubs, we use common branding. So if you know our club in the US, which we started from scratch, there was no club before. The club will look and feel a little bit like Manchester City. It has a similar color of shirt, it's called New York City, the badge looks a little bit similar, but that is not the case everywhere. In Japan, for example, we of course wanted to retain the heritage and the rich history of the sort of Nissan-inspired and owned club, and so their shirt colors and their badge remains the same. In Palermo, a hugely historic club in Italy, there is absolutely no way that we would consider changing their pink shirt. I think that would be a dangerous and bad idea. So then to conceptualize the business model. So I've spoken about this in passing so far, but effectively there are really 4 elements of City Football Group. And so when we describe ourselves, or when we are described as the world's #1 MCO, I don't think that fully reflects what we do. Of course, the club angle is important. We have these 2 elements that I've spoken about. On the left-hand side at the top, this idea of monetizing the club IP, so selling tickets, selling sponsorships, generating prize money through our sponsors, through our leagues, and through our stadiums. And on the right-hand side, we have player development. In certain markets, this is key, particularly places like Uruguay and Belgium that I've mentioned. And just to round out back to AI that we spoke about earlier, we've been experimenting with AI for the past 2 years. We've had the enterprise license for ChatGPT. I think we have 600 people across the globe as registered users with ChatGPT Enterprise. We are still in that experimentation phase, but we are also advancing in some areas. So actually, at the moment, we are building a prototype of an agentic AI model that can aggregate all of our scouting data and all of our player evaluation reports to provide judgments and recommendations on the value of our players, whether they should be sold, and where might be a sales target for them. This is something that we run alongside our human decision-making processes, but essentially AI is now part of our player investment committee. One thing I wanted to add on AI from my perspective is the crucial piece here is the data that you feed into your models. Of course, the whole world is feeding into the model of ChatGPT, but if you want it to work well for your organization, with your data, you need to be collecting that data in the first place. It doesn't need to be structured. Generative AI models are fantastic at structuring unstructured data, but you need to collect it, right? Oh, sorry, I should have mentioned on the previous slide, we have also invested in our, if I can get back on, we've also invested in the grassroots space. So all of our clubs have community foundations, which I'll talk about later, but we also think there is a business opportunity in the grassroots space. Particularly in the US, we operate a series of recreational soccer centres, pay-to-play centres, which are profitable, which is not always straightforward in the football industry. And then we also run our football schools. So these are branded as either Manchester City in general, but also in Australia where we're doing sort of co-branded Melbourne City and Manchester City football schools. What are some of the synergies that the group model creates? And I always find it interesting, you hear a lot in the news about new MCO groups and structures forming, and I think this is super interesting. It's an endorsement of the approach of organisations like City Football Group, but I would caution that multi-club ownership is not easy to get right. The scale of clubs and the sort of regulatory barriers that are in place make it very difficult. I think we've spent 10 plus years working on this, and we still haven't got it right. Two areas that are obvious opportunities and which I think we have made good progress on. On the commercial side, we have multi-club partnerships. So this is the idea that a single sponsor can activate and sponsor multiple CFG clubs. This means that if a brand is looking to target the Brazilian market, for example, we can do that not just through Manchester City with its global reach, but also through our local presence in Bahia. This is an important differentiation point when we're talking with sponsors. Historically, we have not had the fan base of Barcelona, of Real Madrid, of Bayern Munich, of Manchester United, of Liverpool, but we've been able to, through the multi-club model, to provide a different proposition, which really resonates with some brands. And from the club perspective, this means that some of our smaller clubs, like Lommel or Troyes in Belgium and France, have access to sponsors of a calibre that they would not otherwise have. Secondly, on a player development perspective. So because of the common DNA across CFG clubs, it is relatively easy to take players through a City Football Group journey to optimise their development. One example of this would be a player, Tati Castellanos. We recruited him to our club in Uruguay. He quickly became an established player in the league and then progressed to our team in New York in MLS. After an adjustment period, he became the top scorer and the MVP in MLS, at which point he understandably wanted to move to Europe. We struggled at that time to find the right club that suited both him and us, but what we could do is offer him a loan move to Girona in Spain. This gave him the chance to test himself, both on the pitch, but also off the pitch, culturally, his ability to adapt to life in Europe, etc. He had a fantastic period in Girona, was one of the top scorers in the league. You may remember that he scored 4 goals against Real Madrid in a match. We maybe could have done with him at Manchester City, perhaps. But after that period at Girona, he came back to New York and ultimately was sold to Lazio. So he is now not within City Football Group, but I think the City Football Group model and pathway has helped him to develop a career in European football as an established Serie A striker. From a marketing perspective, and thinking about the brand again, we're able to bring our brands together on occasions with friendly matches. So you'll see our women's teams have played against each other. We often do sort of themed match days in Manchester. So the picture at the top shows a Brazilian-themed match day for Manchester City, where we brought Brazilian dancers, musicians, food, culture to the Etihad Stadium. And then my favourite is on the right-hand side. So off the back of Club World Cup, we needed a pre-season match for Manchester City this summer to be arranged at short notice. We had some offers, but they weren't fantastic. So what we were able to do was organise a match against our Italian team, Palermo. As you can see, the stadium was completely full. This generated good revenue for Palermo. They paid a fee to Manchester City, so this is not a gift or a subsidy for Manchester City. This is a commercial arrangement ultimately, and the reaction was fantastic. For those of you that don't know, the banner is of Oasis, the sort of famous Manchester band, in Palermo shirts. And I should say that Manchester City didn't pay for that, Palermo didn't pay for that. That was the Palermo Ultras that funded that. From a community perspective, as I said, every club operates its community scheme, as all clubs around the world do, but that tends to be focused on the local area. We additionally have City Football Foundation, which is a separate entity, a global program that offers and runs programs in countries outside of our local presence. As you can see, around 50,000 young people every year, community coach training, and a number of projects around the world. My personal favorite is something called the Young Leaders Summit, where we essentially find groups of inspirational young leaders aged 18 to 30, and we bring them to Manchester once a year. We've just completed our 8th or 9th edition, and we teach them about leadership skills within the context of football. Now, I included this because it's one of my favorite slides, but it's perhaps a bit too complex to talk to you today. But I think the key point here is that football starts with fans. It is fans that spend the money with sponsors that justify the sponsorship fees. It is fans that pay for the broadcast subscriptions that justify the broadcast rights fees that go to leagues and clubs. And it is fans that buy the tickets and the shirts and the food and drink. This is what sustains club football. Of course, the vast majority of that money flows out to players, to staff, to facilities, to operating costs, to infrastructure, and to some of the grassroots investments that I spoke about. And of course, there is a circular effect of transfer fees and solidarity payments between clubs. But it's not just about fans. And a key message for me here is to think about the broader stakeholder map that is important for CFG, but it should be important to all of the member associations here. Alongside fans, for me, the most important are the leagues, the governing bodies, and the federations. We always maintain that you cannot have a successful club in an unsuccessful league. So I spend a lot of my time trying to work with our leagues, whether that's the Premier League, whether that's UEFA, whether that's WSL in England or MLS in the US. We've done pieces with APL in Australia, with J-League in Japan, in India as well, to think about how we can grow the leagues together. And this is particularly the case for leagues that want to attract external investment. One of the challenges that we have had has been our multi-club ownership, where that is a barrier to investment by City Football Group, and we've had some fantastic conversations with AFC on that. A key consideration then is around the league model, and this has been referenced a couple of times in the past. But this is all about the structure within which our clubs operate, and this is a key investment consideration for City Football Group. Considerations that we have are things like the relationship between the FA and the league. Does the FA run the league, or is it a separate entity? How does ownership look like? Who owns the commercial rights? Not just the broadcast, but some of the central inventory. What about the governance framework? How are decisions made? How do we ensure that we are looking after the long-term value of the league and also of the clubs? Squad management, we spoke about international player rules, and how do we get that balance right between competitiveness on the pitch, but also fueling the success of the national teams? And lastly, revenue and cost distribution. How does is this equally divided, as is the case in MLS? Is there a actually redistributive revenue sharing model in MLS? Not just is broadcast revenue divided equally, but actually some elements of ticketing and retail that clubs generate has to be shared back with the league and the other clubs. Now, I don't want to give a false impression. I do not have a perspective on a single model that is right for every nation around the world. This is completely context dependent. The model in MLS is incredibly different to the model in Premier League, which is different to India, which is different to Australia, which is different to Brazil, for example. But this is a key consideration, and this is something that we always try to work with our leagues on. And just to pull this point together, it is therefore crucial that clubs have the backing of the leagues, the federations, but ultimately also the governing bodies and the governments themselves often to support this. And I think this is a fantastic achievement within Saudi football right now, is there's that common vision that's driving every stakeholder forward. Now just to think a little bit about where City Football Group goes next. So we have invested significantly in facilities. So what you're looking at here is pictures of our City Football Academies. So these are the training facilities for our first teams and our academies where we have them. Now, all of these buildings share a common design ethos, principles, best practices, but of course the specific implementation varies. To give you an example, our facility in Montevideo was built for around $3 million. Our facility in Manchester, which also includes a home for our women's team, a stadium for our women's team, and we're building a training facility there now, costs more than 50 times that. So common principles, but adapted locally. And we will shortly be opening our facility in Lommel, Belgium, and in Girona, Spain. Here are just a few photos. You can see New York in the middle, Montevideo on the right-hand side, and Manchester along the top. At this point, I also want to touch on, again, on the social impact and the positive externalities that football can generate. For those of you, and Simon will know East Manchester well. So 25 years ago, East Manchester wasn't the nicest place in the world. It had a lot of industrial decline, a lot of polluted, contaminated industrial wasteland. The regeneration process was kick-started by the Commonwealth Games, which actually led to construction of what is now the Manchester City Stadium. But we built on that, we converted it to a football stadium, and then in 2014, we opened what you see on the right-hand side, the City Football Academy, next to the stadium. This created jobs, this created skills, learning. We invested in a school, a health institute. So this is not just purely about football performance, but it's also catalyzed the development and essentially the fill-in from the city centre of Manchester out to East Manchester, as you can see, with public transport links, new housing, and now the whole area is thriving. What is next for us? We continue to think that real estate will be a key opportunity for organisations like ours. We are nearing completion of what we call the Manchester Entertainment Destination. In the top left, you can see Co-op Live. This is a music and entertainment arena that is 100 metres from Etihad Stadium. This hosts 150 events per year. We probably could not have built this without Etihad Stadium, but by having Etihad Stadium and building that next to it, we moved from 30 events per year on campus to 180. Off the back of this, we are now doing the broader development you can see here, which will include commercial space. It will include a huge hotel to serve all of those people coming to the campus. It will include a new club shop for Manchester City, an experiential museum, and crucially as well, a stadium expansion that would take us to above 60,000 capacity. Now, interesting to note that the business case in isolation for the North Stand expansion, the stadium expansion, was very difficult to make on its own. But by putting this within a broader multi-use, mixed-use entertainment district, we're able to make that business case stack up for our shareholders. And on the right-hand side, this has been one of the big challenges for City Football Group employees, has been our delivery against a commitment to create a football-specific stadium in New York. As you might imagine, finding real estate, finding land, and getting the permissions to build a stadium in New York is not easy, and it's taken us more than 10 years, but in 2027, we will open the stadium at Etihad Park in New York, a 25,000 capacity stadium, which will be one of the best equipped stadiums in the world. And finally, just to say on media, we've spoken a lot about new fans, the way they engage with content and the way that we reach them. We are investing and will continue to invest significantly in our media capabilities. This shows pictures of our Studio One, which essentially sits within 50 metres of our first team training pitch. So it's very easy to get players into there. We even let them use it for their own sponsorships. We produce our matchday live shows there as well. And so this will continue to be, we think, a key point of differentiation and competitive advantage for City Football Group. I should also say that we can now produce our own TV standard documentaries. So the Together series that you might have seen The first one was produced by Amazon. The last 3 we have produced in-house. And the level of content and the level of trust we have with our first team staff allows us to get footage that would not be possible through an external party. And last but not least, to touch again on recreational soccer. So this is the commercial side of grassroots football. We will continue to scale out our soccer centres in the US, the SoFi branded centres. We'll continue to run football schools around the world for both girls and for boys. And we also think there's an opportunity in adult education. Simon yesterday spoke about the concept of lifelong learning, and so we think there's a real opportunity for football to support that lifelong learning too. Okay, so that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of City Football Group. Hopefully I've given you a sense of the vision that we had, the progress that we've made, some of the setbacks that we've faced, but that determination, that resilience, that persistence. But also I hope I've given a sense that we share the belief and passion that AFC has for football. We share the same challenges and opportunities, and we look forward to working together with you on those in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. We would like to open the floor for questions.
My name is Satyanarayan. I am the Deputy General Secretary of the All India Football Federation. My question to you is, how has been your experience of Mumbai City FC in India? And the second part of my question is, your now silenced rivals, city rivals, had a bigger fan base in India. But after Mumbai City FC has come and after all your initiatives, how much has that shifted? And as a business model and as fan engagement, how do you look at progressing further with your tie-up in India?
Thank you for the question. So India is, of course, a fantastic market. It's one that we sought to enter 6 or 7 years ago. We looked at it for a long time before that. There was, of course, the sort of complexity around the dynamics between ISL and I-League, but we were able to make the investment into Mumbai. This is a club where we are not the sole shareholder. We have a supporting investment partner, and we've had some great success on the pitch. We definitely took our time to learn the market, but we have had success on the pitch. I think, of course, right now, in recent months, the challenges around the license renewal and some of those structural considerations have been a challenge. We have tried to support the league where we can in addressing those. I mean, I think we retain faith on the long-term opportunity in India, but the exact way to get there, we probably need to still continue to work on. I mentioned this earlier, but what we do have in markets such as India is both a local club presence, but also the Manchester City brand. And those do come together at times, but they're also somewhat separate.
It was an excellent presentation. And do you find any other club pursuing this similar strategy? This is my first question. And you have a concentration of the information, talent. Do you expect some backlash at some certain point in the future if you excel all other clubs, or this is two questions?
I'll take your second question first in terms of potential backlash. I think we have seen the regulatory landscape evolve. I think there have been concerns around player development, around the commercial success, but what I would say is this is really tough, and football is an incredibly competitive sport. We have not dominated football, and I don't think that's possible. Even in Manchester City has won 8 league titles in the past 15 years. On the face of it, that looks like dominance, but actually we've lost 7, and we've also won 5 of those titles on the last day of the season. So we have created huge value, excitement, intrigue, narrative flow for the Premier League, and that is important for us. A league that is not competitive is not interesting and will not be successful. We constantly keep track and hope that one day we will achieve it. But we have never had a weekend where every City Football Group club has won or lost, and we're not particularly close. We have, I think, right now, one team that is top of the league and one team that is in the relegation zone, and everything else in between. So I think the backlash, provided we are respectful of club cultures, we've been well received by, by all of the groups in which all of the clubs in which we've invested. I think we can manage that. On your first question around other MCO groups, yes, there are lots of MCO groups. I think MCO might be a bit misleading because there are many different flavors of MCO. I guess the Red Bull model is a bit more of a sort of brand play, and there is a sort of separate brand to drive sales to, so that's separate to ours. We see other groups, we spoke about Brighton earlier, where it's more focused probably on player pathways, Belgium and place in Latin and South America perhaps. So I think there are many different flavors. There are also other investment groups, and this will be a big trend. Sports investment groups, sports funds, not just football groups, where they may be taking minority stakes, and that's more of a financial play, whereas we look to be more active in the support we can provide to clubs. So I think the MCO model will continue to grow, but there will be different innovations of that. And I think our approach will change as well. Certainly one opportunity for us is around, it's probably difficult now for us to acquire many more equity stakes in many clubs, partly because of the MCO restrictions, partly from a headspace and bandwidth perspective. So in terms of new club investments, that has slowed, and I think that would be difficult to sustain at the historic pace, but maybe there's a different model that allows us to keep growing our footprint.
Patrick, insightful presentation. I just want to add on to what the question by MG on this. My question is from the football and business perspective. Is the multi-club ownership model represents the future of football? And what comes with that? You are the leading enterprise for this, and with that, what sort of responsibility or challenges comes with that, being a leader in that space?
Yeah, I mean, MCO has grown, but I don't think MCO is the only model. As I said, it is hard, so I do not think that we'll be in a situation in 10 years' time where all clubs are part of some sort of MCO group. I don't think MCO is either necessary nor is it sufficient to be successful. I think, of course, it carries a great responsibility, but I would like to think that we have used that responsibly, and we've been able to do things like investment in facilities, which you've seen, which maybe as an individual club would be harder to justify. We have a diversification of revenue. We have a central unit of talent and expertise, whether that's on the football side or the sort of commercial business side. So I think there are many advantages to MCO. Of course, sporting integrity needs to be protected. The players, the fans need to be protected and respected, but we look to do that in our model.
Patrick, if you allow me, thank you firstly for the presentation. Apart from Man City, from the other clubs that you've owned, what kind of valuation metrics have you looked at when you invested in those clubs, and which of those clubs have you seen the highest trajectory of valuation in terms of where you started and where you are, apart from Man City, from the different countries that are there? And if you were to look at a potential league or a geography that you think has the highest potential and an interesting entry point in terms of valuation, given how private equity today are jumping on all opportunities, where do you see that opportunity today? Which geography, which league, in light of future valuation exit potentials?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, from a valuation perspective, we think that each of our clubs has value, but actually that value is enhanced by being part of City Football Group. So it's difficult in a way to add up the individual value of our clubs to get to an overall valuation. After Manchester City, the market would tell us that our club in New York is the second most valuable club within the group. We paid around $100 million just for the rights to set up the franchise in New York. So all we got was a piece of paper to say that we could set up the club in New York and have a marketing area. Now, if you look at public valuations of a place like Forbes or Sportico, they put the valuation of established MLS teams at $1 billion. The most recent franchises sold for $400 million. So for us to get into New York at $100 million, I think looks like quite good business. In other areas that have generated growth, it's worth noting that many of the clubs that we've acquired have been in lower divisions or have to some extent had financial difficulties. Palermo had a series of challenges that meant they were in the 3rd division when we acquired them. Our club in Belgium was within days of losing its license to play in Belgian football. So some of these markets have given us the opportunity to take the clubs through the leagues and generate value. In Italy, Palermo is currently in Serie B, but if we can get them up to Serie A, we know there'll be an associated value uplift. In terms of new markets, I think, of course, there are a few big markets by revenue that we think about. The ones where we're missing would be Germany. It's a difficult market to invest into, and we have UEFA MCO considerations. Mexico is a big one, but actually with our club in New York, there's a question about the links between the two. And then, of course, within Asia, I guess we can't ignore the dramatic growth we're seeing in Asia, in particular within the Saudi League as well. So I think there are interesting opportunities, but I would probably say new club investment is not the number one focus for CFG right now.
Thank you very much. We have one last question here.
Hey, Patrick. So aside from capital, what's the proposition for the clubs? I'm trying to get a sense of to what extent do you bring shared services capability to drive anything that can become replicable or scalable across the investee clubs in your portfolio. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we do. We have a central function, both what we call City Football Marketing, which works on the marketing, the partnerships, the retail side, and then we have a sort of central football unit. So we have a global scouting network that feeds into all of our clubs. We have sort of a technical director that sits across the group as well. But ultimately, every club CEO, every club sporting director makes the decisions in that club. They have their own budget and targets to hit to. They make the final decision on players. So it's a bit of a balance. And of course, that also depends on the model. So in some places we're majority or full shareholder. In some cases we're minority. In some cases we're purely advisory.
Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you, Patrick, once again. May I kindly ask FIFA Council member and the President of the Saudi Football Federation, Mr. Yasser Al-Masri, on stage for the pennant presentation.
Hi.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Patrick. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of our 3-day conference, I'd like to thank everyone for being part of this meaningful journey. To all presidents, general secretaries, distinguished guests, thank you for your energy, ideas, and engagement throughout the sessions. To all our speakers, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experiences, Your insights have truly inspired us all. We hope the discussions and connections made here will continue to grow beyond these 3 days. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take a moment to present to our distinguished participants and guests with their certificates. As your name is called, please come forward to the stage. And before we begin, I have the honor to invite AFC General Secretary Datu Seri Winsor John to join us on stage for the pennant certificates on behalf of the Asian Football Confederation. Datu Seri, please. First, we would like to invite Dasho Ugen Sechap, AFC Vice President. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Yasser Al-Mishel, FIFA Council Member and President of the Saudi Arabian Football Federation. Thank you. We invite Ms. Kanya Kiomani, FIFA Council Member and AFC Executive Committee Member. Thank you. Next, Ms. Mahfouza Akhtar Kiron, Executive Committee Member. Thank you. Next, Mr. Valentino Sangil, Executive Committee Member and President of Guam Football Association. Next, Dr. Shaji Prabha Karan, Executive Committee Member. Next, Mr. Chung Mong-kyu, Executive Committee Member and President of Korea Football Association. Next, Mr. Dastan Bek Konok Kbayev, Executive Committee Member. Next, Mr. Pankaj Bikram Nembang, Executive Committee Member and President of All Nepal Football Association. Next, Ms. Susan Shalaby, Executive Committee Member. Next, Ms. Mishgona Mohammadi Aliver, Executive Committee Member. Next, Mr. Ravshan Ermatov, Executive Committee Member. Next, Mr. Isam Sahbani, Lead FIFA Regional Office. Next, Mr. Ahmed Zaim bin Omar Ali, General Secretary, Football Association of Brunei Dar es Salaam. Next, Mr. Mr. Kiyo Sareth, General Secretary, Football Federation of Cambodia. Next, Ms. Yodkiyo Fawadi, General Secretary, Lao Football Federation. Next, Mr. John Anthony Guterres, President, Philippines Football Federation. Next, Mr. Angelico Gabriel Mercader, General Secretary, Philippine Football Federation. Next, Mr. Desmond Ong, Deputy President, Football Association of Singapore. Next, Mr. Badri Gant, General Secretary, Football Association of Singapore. Next, Mr. Ikhapol Polna V, General Secretary, the Football Association of Thailand. Next, Mr. Nilton Telmo Gosmao dos Santos, President, Federation Football de Timor-Leste. Next, Mr. Jose Adilson Ribeiro, General Secretary, Football Federation of Timor-Leste. Next, Dr. Nguyen Van Phu, General Secretary, Vietnam Football Federation. Next, Mr. Muhammad Yusuf Kargar, President, Afghanistan Football Federation. Next, Dr. Behnam Siddiqui, General Secretary, Afghanistan Football Federation. Next, Mr. Hidayat Mombini, General Secretary, Football Federation, Islamic Republic of Iran. Next, Mr. Nuruddin Bukuyev, First Vice President, the Kyrgyz Football Union. Next, Mr. Mederbek Sidikov, General Secretary, the Kyrgyz Football Union. Next, Mr. Skandar Zalilov, Vice President, Tajikistan Football Federation. Next, Mr. Furkat Zon Ahmed Zahnov, General Secretary, Tajikistan Football Federation. Next, Mr. Guvan Chu Muhammad Ovekov, President, Football Federation of Turkmenistan. Next, Mr. Sardar Geltiev, General Secretary, Football Federation of Turkmenistan. Next, Mr. Abbas Maksumov, General Secretary, Uzbekistan Football Association. Next, Mr. Song K, President, Chinese Football Association. Next, Mr. Chao Chongji, Vice President, Chinese Taipei Football Association. Next, Mr. Hui Quan Ke, President, the Football Association of Hong Kong, China Limited. Next, Mr. Charles Chuang, General Secretary, the Football Association of Hong Kong, China Limited. Next, Mr. Tsunyasu Miyamoto, President, Japan Football Association. Next, Mr. Wang Shou-Shuin, Vice President, Chinese Taipei Football Association. Next, Mr. Kazuyuki Yukawa, General Secretary, Japan Football Association. Next, Mr. Chun Han-jin, General Secretary, Korea Football Association. Next, Mr. Chan Keng-hu, General Secretary, Macau Football Association. Next, Mr. Gampatar Mia Gam Arif, Acting General Secretary, Mongolian Football Federation. Next, Mr. Jerry Tan, President, Northern Mariana Islands Football Association. Next, Ms. Emerenciana Tolentino, General Secretary, Northern Mariana Islands Football Association. Next, Mr. Tabith Awad, President, Bangladesh Football Association. Next, Mr. Imran Hussein Tuashar, General Secretary, Bangladesh Football Federation.
Wangchuk. I have the pleasure of calling Wangchuk. Come. Today is a special day. 2 reasons. Come. Today is his birthday. And number 2, according to ChatGPT, he's the president of Bhutan.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Kalyan Chobe, President, All India Football Federation. Next, Mr. M. Satyan Arayan, Deputy General Secretary, All India Football Federation. Next, Mr. Ahmed Tariq, President, Football Association of Maldives. Next, Mr. Ahmed Zarir, Acting General Secretary, Football Associations of Maldives. Next, Mr. Kiran Ray, General Secretary, All Nepal Football Association. Next, Mr. Syed Muhsin Gilani, President, Pakistan Football Federation. Next, Mr. U. L. Jaswar, President, Football Federation of Sri Lanka. Next, Mr. Iraj Wimala Surya, General Secretary, Football Federation of Sri Lanka. Next, Mr. Rashid Al-Zabi, General Secretary, Bahrain Football Association. Next, Mr. Mansour Al-Ansari, General Secretary, Qatar Football Association. Next, Ms. Lamia Bahayan, Vice President, Saudi Arabian Football Federation. Next, Mr. Samir Al-Mehmedi, General Secretary, Saudi Arabian Football Federation. Next, Mr. Talal bin Haidara, First Vice President, Yemen Football Association. Next, Mr. Hussam Al-Sanabani, General Secretary, Yemen Football Association. Next, Major General Kiev Summit, President, ASEAN Football Federation. Next, Mr. Winston Lee, General Secretary, Asian Football Federation. Next, Mr. Ulubek Karimov, General Secretary, Central Asian Football Association. Next, Mr. Yusuke Mihara, General Secretary, East Asian Football Federation. Next, Mr. Qazi Muhammad Salahuddin, President, South Asian Football Federation. Next, Mr. Puro Shotam Katel, General Secretary, South Asian Football Federation. Next, Mr. Khalil Salim, General Secretary, West Asian Football Federation. Our distinguished speakers, Mr. Andy Roxburgh, AFC Technical Director. Ms. Darlene Harrison, AFC Consultant. Mr. Anter Isaac, President, Football Australia. Professor Simon Chadwick. Mr. Frederick Guillemot, Chief Operating Officer, Oceania Football Confederation. Mr. Gusan Hatko, Founder and CEO, Hatko Sports Technologies. Ms. Heather Garriock, Interim CEO and General Secretary, Football Australia. Mr. Regis Yunan, Global Vice President, GLOAT. Mr. Patrick Knight, Director of Strategy, City Football Group. Mr. Joseph F. Cepeda, General Secretary, Guam Football Association. Thank you very much, Dato Siri. And thank you to all our distinguished participants and guests. This conference wouldn't have been possible without your engagement and enthusiasm. Now it is my great honor to invite the AFC President, His Excellency Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa, for his closing address.
Good afternoon, everyone. AFC Executive Committee members, Members Association, and Regional Association presidents, ladies and gentlemen. As we conclude another excellent edition of this important conference, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to each of you for your contributions to this success. The conference has once again given us a valuable opportunity to reflect on our progress and, more importantly, to facilitate forward-looking discussions. Above all, it's given us a renewed optimism and energy to bring the Asian game to even greater heights. Of course, at the end of the day, we will always take the positiveness of these meetings and to understand what is required for us to do in the future. But it's thanks to you, the Member Association, for being here, because I'm sure the last few days have given us the opportunity to sit and discuss, whether between the AFC and yourself, or between the members among themselves, because we know that our meetings are not so much, and I'm sure that probably our next meeting will be in Vancouver for the FIFA Congress. But those discussions, it's not just about the topics that we discussed in the last few days, it's about how we keep, let's say, that closeness between each other always going on. There is always a lot of improvements that we need to do. And of course, the AFC house, at the end of the day, it's your home. And we are responsible of making it better. On the other hand, of course, you, the member associations as well, have a big responsibility with all those programs that have been provided by FIFA and the AFC. Our expectations are always even higher. And we've seen how it impacted some of you in a positive way, but we expect more from others as well. So we share all that responsibilities, because football is not just a game anymore, but again, we're always one step closer to you, to understand what is needed, to understand each one of you's requirements. And it's like speaking a language where you go to different countries and they have different needs. But at the end of the day, we need to look after the 47 nations that represent us in Asia. It's not an easy task. I'm sure you are aware of that. But as I said, by always communicating, by always being close to each other, we can understand the problems that we face, but we understand more what are the solutions and what we can provide for each other. The bigger nations in Asia have a big responsibility towards the smaller ones, and we have responsibility as well to make that happen. But again, at the end, I'm sure that whatever it is, there are always benefits of this gathering. I thank all the speakers that have come in the last 2 days here and presented, of course, their topics. I'm sure we want to take some feedback from you for the next year event. And of course, at the end, I would like my dear brother and dear friend, Yasser Al-Mishal, the president of the Saudi FA, for his hospitality. He's been here, I know, the last 2 or 3 days, but somehow he's always late in my meeting. But again, I wish you safe travels back home, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, dear AFC President. Ladies and gentlemen, This brings the conference to a close. Thank you for your presence, for your participation and engagement over the past 3 days. We look forward to seeing you all in the next AFC event. Safe travels and farewell. Thank you very much. And just one last notice, there will be a lunch served in Salon B just next to the hall. Thank you very much.